welcome to the Dear Teenage Girl podcast. I'm your host, Amy. If you're new here, welcome. This podcast is just supposed to be a relatable podcast to help different teenage girls in their journey of life and their walk of faith, and how those two go really hand in hand together, and how, as teenage girls, we face a lot of hard times and a lot of things that are kind of sucky, but how God can carry us through the good times and the bad times. And I've been having a lot of bad times recently. Um, so let's get into the podcast. Anyway, so it's the first podcast of the new year, so that's super exciting. And I didn't really do any podcasts in December of last year, so we have a lot of catching up to do. I would like to say that this podcast episode is going to be about healing, and it's going to be about peace and just finding that peace that passes understanding, that peace that only God gives. Because I'm going to share a little bit about my testimony as of September, and then just share some other good tips. So, September, I moved to university, and it was a very exciting time. I was a little bit nervous because I was still having seizures, but I was so excited because I had grown up in a small town my whole life, and in a small town that's in the middle of nowhere. So last year, all the people my age went to university, and the closest university is an hour and a half away. So everyone moved out of my town. And then I was kind of like left here all alone. And so I was like the only person my age who was still living in my small hometown. And so I didn't really have any friends my age. So it was a hard year socially. And so I was so excited to move to university where I was going to be living the dorm room experience, and I was going to be making lots of friends. And let me tell you, I made so many friends at university. It was an amazing experience. What really helped was that everyone there had the same belief and had a love for Jesus. And I think that that really just helped everyone become friends because they already had something in common, and that was our love for Jesus. And so I made some amazing friends there. I was so grateful for the experience. And September, my health was really good. I might have only had like one or two seizures in all of September, which was really nice because I was in a new environment and I didn't want to be known as the seizure girl. And I found that when I was known as the girl who had seizures, then I was looked at differently. And it's like I couldn't leave a room without someone rushing out after me. I couldn't blink without someone thinking I'm having a seizure. Like, it was very much like, I'm so grateful for the people that were taking care of me. Like, I completely understand. But it was like I couldn't do anything without anyone being there and without people freaking out. And so I was so excited to be in a new environment where people didn't know me as a girl with seizures. They just knew me as Amy Boyd, the funny, outgoing girl. Um, and so September went really well. Like, I think like my roommate knew that I had seizures, and my RA, and like that was it because I wasn't having any, people weren't seeing any. And so I was just really enjoying getting to know the town that I was in, getting to know the people that I was surrounded with, doing school, and just really growing in my faith through classes and through socializing and through the chapels that they had at the school. And it was an amazing time, and I was thriving. And then in October, as you guys know, I went through a really bad breakup. Bad in the sense that it was someone that I had loved for a year, over a year, and then it's like no contact. Not that it was like a bad experience. Um, and that threw my health for a loop. And after that, I started having lots of seizures again. And it was just a really, really bad time because it's like I could barely make it through classes without having a seizure. Um, the ambulance had to be called on me multiple times. Um, it was not a fun experience. Um, and so that made university life hard because when you're having multiple seizures a day, afterwards your brain has like this like recuperating, recovering kind of time. And so I like to play it off and pretend that I'm fine right away after the seizure, but that's not the case. My brain is still trying to recover from what just happened. And so when that's happening, it's really hard to get down to schoolwork. And um, so it was hard to keep up with my schoolwork. I did, and I passed all my classes, and I'm so thankful for that. And it was hard to then hang out with friends because then it became the thing where I stood up, went to walk away, someone would follow me. I blinked an extra time, someone, and so again, I'm not blaming them at all. I'm so thankful that they cared, and I'm so thankful that they loved me enough to be concerned for me. But I was kind of like back where I was in the summer, where I was known as the girl with seizures. Everyone look out for her. It just wasn't where I wanted to be. I thought that I was doing better. I thought that I was healing, and I wasn't healing as much as I wanted to have been. So October goes by, multiple hospital trips, multiple seizures, multiple just kind of, I don't know, I just started to really become bitter. And I was like, God, I thought you were healing me. Like, what's going on? And so my heart, I would say, became really, really bitter. And I started to get upset with the experiences I was facing and then ultimately becoming upset with God. And I'm not proud of that, but I needed that experience because it helped me in the long run. Let's say the beginning of November, there is something that happens at my school. It's called Sanctuary, and basically it's a student-led chapel every other Sunday night. And so they have the students get to like pick what the worship music they want, and they lead worship, and then there's a student that preaches. And this was the first sanctuary that I was finally able to go to because usually I would go either home for the weekend or I had something on every single other weekend, and then I would go back to school on Monday because I would try to fit in a chiropractor appointment before school on Monday. So I hadn't been able to go to a sanctuary, but I really, really wanted to go because I've just heard amazing things about the sanctuaries. And so this was the first one that I got to go to. Um, but going to the sanctuary, I had to take a wheelchair because after the breakup, what my body liked to do is whenever I was feeling really stressed, it would like to shut down. So I would say I would go paralyzed, waist down, multiple times a week. And so thank goodness the school had a wheelchair that I was able to use, but it was happening a lot. Uh, like I would say for a while it was like every day, and it wasn't like every day all day, but it would last for hours. Um, Anywhere from like 1 hour, 2 hours to like 6 hours, and it was really hard and it was really scary. And so I had to go to the sanctuary in my wheelchair, and so I wheeled down, and I sat near some friends, and the worship set list, I can't remember all of it, but it was a good set list. um, but I remember they were singing Goodness of God, and that's a song that I usually really like. I think it's been a little bit overplayed at my school, but I really do like the song. And it was playing, and I remember I couldn't bring myself to sing the song because I couldn't bring myself to say the words, all my life you have been faithful, all my life you have been so, so good. I couldn't bring myself to sing about the goodness of God because I was upset at God because of my circumstances, because I had finally been able to taste the lemonade. I had finally thought that I was healing, and then all of a sudden I had this big setback, and I was upset, I was angry, I was questioning. And so I couldn't bring myself to sing the words, and I was like, I need to leave. Like I'm just too upset. I need to go cry, and I don't want any of these people to see me cry. And so I wheeled myself to the elevator, and I press the elevator button, and then I'm waiting for the elevator to come down, and I look at my phone, and I have a message from my RA, and it's like, "Are you okay?" I said no, and then I went full body paralyzed. could not move a single bone, muscle. Like I wasn't paralyzed in my face. I could still talk, but like neck down, I could not move at all. And that's the first time that I had been paralyzed like that. Like usually it was just my legs that wouldn't work, but this was like my full body. And when I tell you I was in so much pain, I was like almost screaming out of pain. And I have a really high pain tolerance, and I hate like when other people see that I'm in pain, so I try to like play it off really cool. I was like almost crying and screaming. I was in so much pain, almost throwing up. Like it was the worst pain, not that I've ever been in, but it was really, really bad pain. And my RA came out and she sees me by the elevator and she's like, "Oh, do you want to go up to your room?" And I was like, "Yeah, like I probably should." But she was like, in her head, she's like, "I don't want her to go to her room. Like, I think she needs to be here at Sanctuary. Like, the speaker is one of her friends, and he's a really good speaker, and he's a really good worship leader." And she's like, "No, no, like, you need to be here." But she didn't say that to me. She was like, "Okay, like, I can take you up to your room, or I can take you to the sanctuary." And I'm like, I feel like I should probably be in the sanctuary, but I'm like, I want to go to my room, and I want to cry to my roommate, and I want to feel sorry for myself, and I want to be mad. But I was like, it doesn't matter, like whatever's easiest for you. And she's like, "So do you want to go to Sanctuary?" And I was like, I don't want people to see me like this. And she's like, "It's okay, we'll sit at the back." And I'm so thankful that she did that, because I'm so thankful for that Sanctuary Day. That Sanctuary Day was a really turning point in my life. And so she took me back into the sanctuary and she sat beside me, and we were in the back and we were listening to the message, and it was so good. And then after the message, there was more singing. And at this point, I was still full body paralyzed. I was like crying. And the speaker had come back and was talking to my RA, like wondering what was going on. And so he's like, "Can I pray for you?" And I was like, "For sure, you can pray for me." But like in my head, I'm like, yeah, I've had lots of people pray for me before. Like, God hasn't chosen to heal me at this time yet, so I don't think He's going to heal me today. Not that He can't heal me. I fully believe that God can heal me, whether it's over time or whether it's in a split second. I know that God can heal me, but I just like, I was like, He's probably not going to heal me today. And so he was praying over me, and he was praying with such confidence and such boldness, but like nothing was happening. And so he was praying for a long time, and then like the sanctuary kind of like ended, and then slowly people started coming over to me. And so there's probably like 20, 30, 40 people surrounding surrounding me, but I didn't notice because I had my eyes closed. And also, I don't like a crowd of people around me when I'm like struggling, when I'm crying, when I am having a seizure or I'm paralyzed. Like, I don't want that kind of attention. But I am thankful because it's like all people that I knew and all people that I loved and I was friends with or acquaintance with. And I knew that they were there for the right reason. They weren't there because they wanted to like see a show or they wanted to spread the gossip later. They were there because they genuinely cared and they wanted to pray. So it was like everyone was praying over me, and it was just an amazing experience. And then all of a sudden I had a really big seizure, and then I could walk again and I could move again. And so I was like, whoa, like what just happened? Everyone was kind of just like looking like, what the heck is happening? They're like, is she healed? Was that just a normal seizure? And as this was going on, one of the guys ran up to the apartment and grabbed vegetable oil, olive oil, something, and ran down, and he was like, "Hey, can we anoint you?" And I had never really heard of anointing before because I grew up in Brethren church, didn't really do anointing. Whereas like Pentecostal, I like, my friend said she saw this every week, like it was just normal to her. But I had never really seen anointing, I'd never really heard anointing, so I turned over to my best friend, and we have very similar beliefs and a very similar upbringing. So I was like, "Hey, like, what is this?" And she explained like it's in James. And so after her explanation, I was like, "Okay, like this sounds legit. It doesn't sound like some like voodoo thing." So I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I was anointed and they prayed over me, and it was just such a beautiful thing. And afterwards, I went and watched The Mormon Bachelor with my friends. And I didn't have a seizure, I didn't go paralyzed, so I'm like, "Well, this is cool." And then the next day I just like woke up, and I was like, okay, I want to learn more about this anointing. So I did a deep Bible study, deep dive on like anointing, and I wrote down a whole bunch of things that I want to do for a podcast. And I do want to do this podcast maybe next week, maybe coming up. Um, so this isn't a podcast on anointing. This is just like my testimony of healing. And then I'll do a podcast on anointing another time. But the next day, I had done this deep dive and I had learned a lot about anointing. And I just, my heart still like wanted more answers. And so I texted my RA, it's like, hey, can we have breakfast together? She's like, sure. And so I was just talking to her. I'm like, I don't know if this was healing. If this healed me completely or if it healed me for a night. And she said, either way, you were healed. You were either healed for life or you were healed in that moment. And she said, the oil doesn't do anything special. It's not anything grand or fancy, but it's a symbol that you have people here praying for you and you have people here lifting you up to God. And I was like, okay. And part of me was really hoping that I had been healed for good. Maybe I was like, maybe this is part of my testimony. Maybe all of the things that happened in my life up to here was to show how amazing God is and how God can do miracles and and being healed from then on. Like that's such a cool story. And so I was really hoping, but at the same time I was like, I don't know, I've been prayed over before and nothing had happened. I don't know if it's God's timing. Anyway, uh maybe 10, 20 minutes after that, I had a seizure. And then I had another seizure, and then I went full body paralyzed again, and I was in so much pain. And I was like, take me to the hospital. Because it's nothing that I had experienced before besides the night before. And I'm like kind of concerned because I'm like can't move any of my limbs. So I was like, maybe I should go to the hospital. But I wanted to go to a different hospital than the hospital that the ambulance kept taking me. So we got someone to drive me to the hospital. Um, that was a funny story because when we got to the hospital, I was like sitting in the car and my roommate went to the hospital with me to like be with me while I was in the hospital. And then this random guy, well, he's not like a random guy, but he's not like a friend or anything, but he like drove us to the hospital. That was so nice. We're so grateful for him to do that. And so he like picks me up to like get me out of the car and into the wheelchair. But as he's like picking me up and trying to get me out, he like can't get me out. And so he just keeps on like going back and pulling me out, but it's like not, I'm not coming out, and my head just keeps on banging against the roof of his car. And I don't know why, but I was like, I can't move, so I forgot that I could speak. And I think that like also he was just like really close to me, and so I was like, I know he's trying to be respectful in this, and he was being very respectful, and it's like something that had to happen. But I was like, I'm really like close to this man's personal space, so I also like didn't want to like speak and like have bad breath or something. So I'm just like there like in a daze, like I just smacked my head off of this car like at least 5 times, and he and finally my roommate's like you keep smacking your head off the car, and he's like, oh, and he didn't realize, and so he like put me down a bit and then brought me out, and finally I was like out of the car and in the wheelchair, and he's like, peace out, and we're like, okay, we'll call you when it's over. And so we went into the hospital and they're like, you're fine, it's just anxiety. So they put me on lorazepam, a higher dosage. I was high out of my mind. And then after a while of being on lorazepam, then I was able to move again and it was great. So I was able to walk into the guy's car afterwards so he didn't have to smack my head off of his car even more. And then I told him my whole life story. So that was great because now he just knows everything about me because I was high on my mind and I barely know the kid. But after that, I was confused. I was like, okay, I understand that this isn't God's timing to heal me, but what was the point of like last night? Like in God's eyes, it's like for healing. And then I was like, I need healing for my seizures, but I don't need healing for my seizures as much as I need healing for my heart. And after that, I started religiously praying that God would give me a peace that passes all understanding, and that God would give me joy, and that I wouldn't be bitter anymore, that He would take the bitterness out of my heart. And I just prayed that and prayed that and prayed that, and I just kept on trying to get closer and closer to God. And ever since then, I have had so many things thrown at me. A few weeks later, my brother got diagnosed with cancer. A few weeks after that, my aunt died from cancer, and a few weeks after that, my university that I was thriving at asked me that I asked me to do school online at home so that I wouldn't be staying on residence. Those are three really big pills to swallow. But for my aunt, I had that assurance that I don't have to grieve the way that the world grieves because I know that she's in a better place. And it really hurts me to see the people that she left behind, like my cousins and my uncle. That hurts me a lot because I want to be there for them. But I also know that she was in a lot of pain when she was on this earth, and now she's in heaven and she's not in pain at all. She's in a better place and she's with Jesus praising him, and I think that that's so cool and so amazing. My brother, I know that he's in God's hand. School, that was that was hard, but I'm trying to make the most of it. I'm trying to start a girls' Bible study. I'm trying to do emergency supply teaching again. I'm trying to uh, keep up with school, get better grades this semester. I'm trying to figure out how I can have a social life, like different things like that. I'm trying to keep myself busy. I'm trying to heal. I'm trying to do all of these things. And so it's like, okay, God, this is your plan for me right now. This is my chance to heal, and hopefully, I don't have to do this setback again. But in everything that has happened, I've just been able to cling to God so much, and I've just found this peace that passes understanding. Jesus said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you, not as the world gives. Do not let your heart be troubled, and do not be afraid." I have this peace that only God can give me. And if I hadn't have asked God to heal my heart, if I hadn't have asked God to take away the bitterness, I would be so depressed right now. I would be so, I don't know where I would be right now, because I've had three bombshells hit me, plus my breakup that I'm still trying to get over. Like, so many things have hit me. And yeah, it's been hard, and yeah, I've had times where I've cried over it, but ultimately, I'm not angry about it, and ultimately, I'm not bitter about it. And I've found this peace and this joy in God. And people are like, I don't understand how you do this. Like, your life is so hard right now. I don't understand how you keep going. And I can just point to God and I can just say, I don't know either. Like, if it, well, I do know, but if it was up to me, no. I would be in my bed all day, binge watching Netflix, crying because my life is not as good as lives on the show. But I have this peace that passes understanding, and so I want to get into the biblical side of the anointing and like more biblically next podcast episode. But I wanted to just share my story this podcast episode because it's been a roller coaster. It has been a whirlwind, and it has been hard. The breakup, hard. My brother having cancer, hard. My aunt dying from cancer, hard. My school, extremely hard. But I still have this joy and I still have this peace, and I'm still able to rejoice in who God is every day because I know that He has a plan and I know that He's carrying me through. And so hopefully by this story, maybe it will be able to encourage you. Like, if you're going through hard times, just start praying. Start praying for peace, start praying for joy, and just pray that God would take the bitterness off of your heart, because He will. I promise you, He will. And maybe He won't heal whatever else is going on in your life, but He'll heal your heart, and He'll heal your perspective, and that will help you navigate through life, and that will help you in the long run. And yeah, so that was my testimony as of like right now, like what's kind of happened from September to now. And now I am just trying to find ways to glorify God while I'm at home. Um, so I would appreciate prayer. Um, just that I could get a good Bible study started up for girls. I just have this heart for preaching, why I started the podcast. And just this heart for community. There's no one in my town my age. And so I want to be able to be friends with girls that are younger than me because I am friends with girls that are younger than me, but also just build a community with other Christians and be able to hang out with other Christians. And so if you will, please pray for me that I would just be able to find a good Christian community in my town, that I would still be able to connect with the people from my school. And yeah, so we'll see you guys next Wednesday and have a great week.